In recent weeks, the internet has been abuzz with the controversy surrounding Johnny Somali, a YouTuber infamous for his inflammatory antics in South Korea. His videos, which showcase him mocking Korean culture and harassing locals, sparked widespread anger. For many Koreans, his actions went beyond mere disrespect. They felt like an attack on the dignity of a people with a long history of resilience in the face of foreign oppression. This wasn't just about an individual's offensive behavior. It touched something deeper, a cultural feeling tied to Korea's collective memory and identity. Let's take a dive into Korea's relationship with anger in today's video. Did you know there's a mental illness unique to Korean culture? It's called hwabyung, which translates directly to fire illness, with hwa meaning fire and byung meaning disease. This condition is deeply tied to the Korean sociocultural experience, often affecting middle-aged women who have endured years of unspoken frustrations and unresolved tensions. In traditional Korean society, women were expected to keep negative emotions, especially anger, under wraps to maintain harmony in the family. But that silent endurance came at a personal cost. Suppressing such strong emotions often led to psychological and physical symptoms that came to define hwabyung. With hwabyung, the burden of repressed anger builds up over time, eventually resulting in physical and emotional symptoms like chest pressure, heat flushes, intense waves of anger, and a persistent sense of injustice. Some describe feeling a burning weight in their chest, as if the internal fire of anger could no longer be contained. This kind of suffering is more than individual pain. It represents a broader theme of unresolved sorrow, which has roots in an even deeper cultural concept. As we explore this phenomenon further, we see how hwabyung reveals something fundamental about the Korean experience, a cultural depth marked by endurance and a complex relationship with sorrow and frustration. This concept of bottling up emotions and letting them simmer over years is part of a much larger force in Korean identity. To understand it, we need to look at Korea's history, particularly during the colonial era under Japanese rule. Between 1910 and 1945, Japan's colonial rule over Korea brought about severe economic exploitation, cultural suppression, and forced assimilation. Policies like Nisenitai, or Japan and Korea as one body, attempted to justify Japanese dominance by positioning Koreans as an inferior people in need of Japanese civilization. This subjugation left Koreans with deep emotional scars, including feelings of humiliation and loss of identity. Decades of enduring oppression gave rise to a unique cultural perspective, something Koreans came to call Han. The concept of Han as a cultural entity didn't exist historically until more recent times. Its origins can be traced to the period surrounding the Korean War, when Japanese poet Yanagi Suetsu, who expressed sympathy for Koreans, offered his reflections on the Korean plight under Japanese colonization. Responding to a series of political demonstrations by Koreans against colonial rule, Yanagi wrote, "The long, harsh, and painful history of Korea is expressed in the hidden loneliness and sadness of their art. It always has a sad beauty and loneliness that brings you to tears. When I look at it, I cannot control the emotion that fills my heart. Where else can I find such beauty of sadness?" This marked the early conceptualization of Han. Yet while Yanagi's words appeared sympathetic, his view was shaped by a broader Japanese imperialist ideology. At the time, Japan's official historiography portrayed Korea as a stagnant society. To rationalize colonization, Japan promoted an image of Koreans as inferior, uncivilized people who were incapable of self-governance and thus naturally suited to Japanese control, a view reinforced through the policy of Nisenitai mentioned earlier. Ironically, this depiction of Koreans as dependent on Japanese guidance was used to justify occupation as a civilizing mission. Thus, even as Yanagi sympathized with Korea's suffering, his perspective was rooted in imperial bias, portraying Koreans as fundamentally sorrowful and powerless. The concept of Han, then, has its origins in these layered and conflicting perspectives, which, from a modern standpoint, we can critically examine. Despite this, Yanagi was widely regarded as a friend to Koreans during the colonial period. He sought to preserve Korea's traditional art, organized fundraising lectures, supported humanitarian causes, and advocated for Korean cultural heritage. Moderate Korean nationalists who avoided direct confrontation with Japanese authority supported Yanagi, and the Donga Ilbo newspaper actively promoted his work. Influential figures in Korean history, art, and media admired him, seeing him as an advocate for preserving traditional Korean aesthetics. In time, the concept of Han, centered on the beauty of sorrow, was further developed by Korean scholars and writers, carrying Yanagi's influence forward. So, what does Han mean today? After the Korean War, which left the country divided, many Koreans experienced profound loss of family members, economic stability, and, on a larger scale, their national identity. As the country rebuilt itself, Han became woven into the cultural heritage of Koreans, symbolizing a collective sorrow, but also a source of unity. Despite its somber origins, Han has fueled a resilient national spirit, helping Koreans come together, find motivation, and assert themselves on the world stage. This enduring presence of Han is reflected in Korea's modern media, art, and literature, where references to Han persist as symbols of strength born from hardship. In today's Korea, Han still shape cultural expressions, but they are evolving. The country has transformed from a war-torn land to a global leader in technology, pop culture, and economic strength. For Koreans abroad, particularly Korean Americans, Han has also become a symbol of resilience and pride. Yet some feel that Korea's remarkable progress calls for a shift in perspective. Historian Min-Soo Kang, reflecting on this evolution, states, "With the achievement of prosperity and democracy, the notion of an essential character defined by a profound sorrow from trauma and unrealized potential no longer seems appropriate." For Kang, the identity of Korea's people is moving beyond the sorrow of Han, embracing a narrative of empowerment. As Korea's influence continues to grow globally, Han serves as both a tribute to the past and a point of reflection for the future. The experiences of Hwabyong remind us of the importance of expressing emotions rather than repressing them, while Han reflects a broader resilience that has carried Korea through hardships to success. Today, Koreans have the opportunity to redefine these concepts, embracing their history while shaping a future that reflects their evolving identity. As each new generation interprets Han in their own way, they have the chance to choose which elements of this heritage to carry forward, creating a future that respects the past while embracing new possibilities.